Joining us now is Behnam Taleblu, Iran Program Senior Director at Foundation for Defence of Democracies. Behnam, thank you so much for your time. I really want to get your assessment of where we're at with Operation Epic Fury. Of course, dozens of Iranian leaders have been wiped out, including Khamenei. And initially, of course, the US and Israel striking in a daylight operation, really keeping that element of surprise once again. We have just heard from Secretary of State Marco Rubio warning that the hardest hits are yet to come.
Again, I'm not going to give away the details of our tactical efforts, but the hardest hits are yet to come from the U.S. military. The next phase will be even more punishing on Iran than it is right now. Someone was screaming, how long will it take? I don't know how long it'll take. We have objectives. We will do this as long as it takes to achieve those objectives, and we will achieve those objectives. The world will be a safer place when we're done with this operation.
Behnam, what's your assessment of this operation so far and what's going to happen next?
Well, absolutely. In terms of operational advantages, surprise, and just sheer conventional military capabilities, this joint operation by the United States and by Israel brings a lot to the table. I mean, it does speak volumes if in a daylight operation you're able to take out the supreme leader, who, by the way, is the commander-in-chief of the Islamic Republic's armed forces. Now, on the flip side, Iran's armed forces are decentralized. There's missile bases and garrisons that basically operate as subterranean storage facilities that allow the regime to continue to fire these long-range strike systems like ballistic missiles as well as drones. But ultimately, they do have to come out. And when they do come out, they are struck in a way that you are seeing in some of the split screen here. That really does showcase the breadth and depth of U.S. intelligence penetration, Israeli intelligence penetration, surveillance and reconnaissance capabilities, and firepower. And with the heaviest yet to come, my assumption is that that means B-1 and B-2 bombers against these buried subterranean facilities that can basically in-tune both of Iran's missiles and launchers, robbing it of the main tool of deterrence that it has at the moment.
And how realistic are the chances of regime change here? I mean, Iranian people, they're not armed. They've been called to rise up and reclaim their government. So how can they do that?
Well, they haven't been called up yet. In fact, one of the most hard-hitting and hard-nosed speeches of President Trump was actually this Saturday when the operations were launched, where he told Iranians to actually stay indoors until the bulk of the bombing and the bulk of the fighting was over. It would be a suicide mission to send Iranians out right now in protest. Make no mistake, Iranians did go out and celebrate when the supreme leader was killed, not just obviously in the country, but across the world and in the diaspora. But right now, regime change will only be able to come if once the U.S. finishes the defanging operation against the missile and military capabilities, that it moves to target the apparatus of repression, that it shreds the command and control networks that exist in a more decentralized fashion and helps level the playing field, not in a one-off operation, but as part of a broader and more sustained campaign. If the United States does not do that and lets the Islamic Republic survive after this, the world won't be a safer place.
So the IRGC, they're obviously not going to be walking away lightly. What is the plan? It's been argued by some that what happens next may not exactly mean democracy for Iran. That might be too hard to achieve, but there could be some interim government, and what is hopefully going to happen after this would be a better situation than what Iranians have been living in.
Well, it depends, again, a great deal on the synthesis between street power and air power. If not just the political elite are decapitated and some of the military institutions gutted, but more importantly, the security forces, that they feel the sandwich between street pressure and air power. And ultimately, the goal is to get some of the armed forces to defect or go off sides. That, in great deal, will determine what the future of a post-Khamenei Iran will really look like. Will it just be an Islamic Republic 2.0? Will it be more of a military state? Will it be a failed state? Or will there be a chance for another nationwide uprising that could overthrow what's left of this system and replace it, indeed, with the transition government? That's the hope that many Iranians have right now. That's why they rallied to exile Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, who does have a transition plan. Out of all of the other options, this really does seem to be the only one to square the circle internally and externally with meeting some of the foreign and security policy challenges that America, Israel, and the West have, as well as internally with being both popular, secular, and supporting representative governments. Everything else is simply authoritarian musical chairs.
Trump says that we are ahead of our time projections. He says right from the beginning we projected around 4 to 5 weeks, but we have the capability to go for far longer than that. What do you expect?
Well, I think, again, a great deal depends on the way the Islamic Republic is fighting at this point, in particular, the way the IRGC are conserving versus expending their long range strike assets. If you look in the Persian Gulf, for example, at the GCC states, almost by a measure of 8-1, the Islamic Republic is firing more drones than ballistic missiles. Against Israel, however, it's almost exclusively ballistic missiles. And rather than go in large barrages, they're trying to expend interceptors and missile defense assets in case this does become a larger and a longer war. And to that end, they're doing their best to conserve because that's the main tool that can guarantee regime survival. If I was the president personally, I would not have given a timeline because that allows the Islamic Republic a benchmark with which to plan around. It's always good to keep the enemy guessing. And Donald Trump has been excellent traditionally at keeping everyone guessing, allies and adversaries alike.
Absolutely. And of course, we have seen Iran retaliating. It's targeted energy facilities in Qatar, Saudi Arabia. Are you concerned with Iran's response and just how catastrophic it might be?
I'm concerned with those responses, but I'm also, to be honest, not shocked by those responses. This is the world's foremost state sponsor of terrorism. This is precisely what drone-backed terrorism looks like. Targets against civilian infrastructure, target against hotels, luxury residences, airports, ports, energy installations. Even a U.S. flagged ship was targeted today. Unfortunately, many of America's traditional partners in this part of the world have stood up. Qatar, for example, has shot down 2 Iranian fighter bomber jets. I mean, this stuff that is happening in the region is historic, and I couldn't think of a better bumper sticker for the Abraham Accords than the Islamic Republic, at the same time as it's attacking Israel, at the same time as it's attacking American bases, is also attacking America's Arab partners across it in the Persian Gulf.
And Israel has been striking, of course, Lebanon after Hezbollah fired rockets and drones in the northern city of Haifa. Could I get your analysis of this?
Yeah, it was expected that after the killing of the supreme leader, at least one of these proxy or armed terror groups that the Islamic Republic has either created or co-opted in the region would come online. In fact, that was the red line that Hezbollah had mentioned, which is that they might look the other way if there's a strike, but ultimately, if the supreme leader is killed, they would get involved. Now they seem to be replicating some of the battlefield mistakes of the way they entered the war after October 7, which is incrementally, because Israel will and Israel has responded decisively and in a major way against Hezbollah assets in the south. So whether you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound, I think we're seeing some heavy action on the northern front, regardless of the more limited approach into entry into the breaking of the ceasefire by Hezbollah.
Behnam Taleblu, Iran Program Senior Director at Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thank you so much for making the time to speak with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.